Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to your weekly dose of celestial goodness. As always, thank you for joining me in this space and on this journey. I truly appreciate it. So, I had every intention of talking about the throat chakra today. I love the throat chakra, and I love encouraging people to speak their truth. This has many major benefits, but then a few things came to mind. First, I want you to just check in with yourself. Just breathe. Just breathe normally, but really bring yourself into the present moment. For a lot of people, this week meant reflecting on a year since things shut down due to the coronavirus. Our lives have changed in ways that we really could not have fathomed. We have come face to face with ourselves, with grief, with death, and with the notion that life can change suddenly. Within all of that, there's also been moments of love, gratitude, understanding, breakthrough, and joy. Whatever this past year has been like for you, I am thankful that you're here, either reading the blog or watching this video, and feeling hopeful for a new day. I maintain that this too shall pass, and that after the darkness of a long night, that dawn will always come. I feel the dawn coming each day. I feel more hopeful. I've learned a lot during this time, and it has really inspired me to live an intentional and purposeful life, and to make each moment worth it, doing the things that I love with the people that I love. Whatever you've gone through, whether good or not so great, I am just sending you a whole lot of love right now. So, the second thing is that I got totally caught up on a topic that came to mind after watching an interesting movie. The movie is I Care a Lot, and you can see it on Netflix. I think somewhere else, but I watched it on Netflix. And when I say interesting, please know that I'm still trying to process whether what I watched was that the writing was brilliant, in that it highlights something that I feel we need to address as a society, which is how we treat the elderly. Or is it that the writing wasn't that great and the whole movie was carried along by the performances of Rosamund Pike and Peter Dinklage? If you have seen this movie, please drop a comment in the box and let me know your thoughts. I am curious to hear what other people think. Without spoiling the movie, the basic premise is that the main character, Marla Grayson, is the head of Grayson's Guardianships. She makes her living by convincing the legal system to grant her guardianship over elderly people who she pretends cannot take care of themselves. Note, she does not do this by herself. She has connections with people both in the care home field and the medical profession. It also seemed to me that she found a loophole in the system as it pertains to elder care, and she exploits it to the fullest extent possible, basically fueled by her desire to be really, really rich. Once she has the power of the courts on her side, she basically shows up to the home of her prey, has them placed in an assisted living facility or nursing home where they lose contact with the outside world. Once they're out of the way, she sells their home and their assets and pays herself from the proceeds. It's all very nefarious in my book, and I watched some of the movie seething at the way I saw her taking advantage of the elderly. The crux of the movie, though, comes when she gets wind of Jennifer Peterson, a seemingly perfect potential ward for her. Jennifer is very wealthy, and by all accounts, she has no family. Let's just say that things got very interesting at that point. I think that most people watching the movie wonder if this is something that can even happen. Can someone just show up at your home and say that it was determined by the state that you are no longer capable of taking care of yourself, so now they have assigned you a guardian? Can someone who is a complete stranger be assigned to make your decisions? What happens if they're supposed to have your best interest in mind, but then it seems like maybe they don't? Unfortunately, many states have and had loopholes that actually make it possible for guardianship scams to happen. In 2017, The New Yorker wrote an article called "How the Elderly Lose Their Rights," and I'm going to drop the link in the comment box. One point of note was that many states have actually worked to reform guardianships because there was a rise in guardianship scams. Well, what is guardianship anyway? I should probably clarify that. According to Justia, guardianship is a legal process used to protect individuals who are unable to take care of their own well-being due to infancy, incapacity, or disability. A court will appoint a legal guardian to care for an individual, known as a ward, who is in need of special protection. Legal guardians have the legal authority to make decisions for their wards and present their ward's personal and financial interests to protect. This largely functions state by state. Sarah Luderman wrote an article for The Nation in which she calls for the abolition of guardianships. Most people have heard of guardianships probably from pop culture, like recent issues with Britney Spears, for example, and her dad. Luderman said, "Guardianship is built on the patronizing assumption that people with certain disabilities are incapable of being full citizens and need a non-disabled person to act as their proxy in all things." According to the AARP, about 1.3 million Americans are currently under guardianship. It's hard to say exactly how many because the record keeping is poor and there are no national standards or federal oversight. As a system, guardianship relies on the assumption that guardians are benevolent and always want the best for their wards. And this is probably true for most guardians. They want to protect their elderly parents or disabled children from financial exploitation and worse. But unfortunately, no system that depends on the individual benevolence of someone with absolute power can be relied on. People under guardianship still have their own opinions and feelings, and they deserve the respect that everyone else is afforded. So she wrote that, and then there are also some people who just simply call for the reform of guardianship around the country. If you would like more resources on elder law and on guardianships, the American Bar Association actually has a really good page full of resources. And if you can't tell that I went down the rabbit hole with this, then let me say I went down the research rabbit hole. And in the future, I think what I'm going to do is maybe do a post or video about how we can get our legal life in order. Wills and directives are not just for the elderly. These are things we all should be thinking about. So, that being said, what all of this really made me think about was how society treats the elderly. Many of us have heard the phrase, "once a man, twice a child." There's something known as the theory of retrogenesis. It often comes up in the study of dementia and Alzheimer's, and it basically says, this theory refers to the process by which degenerative mechanisms in dementia reverse those of normal human development. In other words, the person regresses backwards as a child's brain progresses forward. Cicero said, "For there is assuredly nothing dearer to a man than wisdom, and though age takes away all else, it undoubtedly brings us that." With the understanding that as we grow older, there may be a time when we're unable to take care of ourselves. Many ancient cultures had an awareness of this, and they had plans in place to take care of their elderly. It wasn't just that there was a certain level of honor and respect that came with aging. There was also a cultural aspect that was very important to the society as a whole. There was also a certain amount of reverence for the wisdom and the experience that comes along with age. An African proverb says, "Those who respect the elderly pave their own road toward success." There are many lessons that we can learn from the elderly, including those on forgiveness, integrity, gratitude, growth, relationships, and honestly, just life. Jared Diamond, who wrote the phenomenal book Guns, Germs, and Steel, has also written a work called The World Before Yesterday. In this piece, he investigated traditional societies and what the modern world might learn from them. He asked the question, what can we learn about how to treat elderly people from traditional societies? And while there are many variables to consider with this, and he noted that in modern society, many older people end up living separately from their friends and family. At the worst extreme, he said, we get rid of the elderly by either neglecting them and not feeding them, abandoning them when the group moves, encouraging suicide, or killing them. He mentioned that there are reasons for that, including, for example, the environment. There might be a tribal or nomadic society, and they may live in Arctic or desert extremes and may have a lack of resources like food. But he mentioned cultures where there's also a priority for feeding and caring for the elderly. He points out the connection between society's values and the usefulness of the elderly and the contributions that they can make. Their contributions throughout time have included childcare, crafting, leading, and sharing knowledge. He also pointed out that in ancient cultures, the wisdom of the elderly spelled the difference between survival and death. I once listened to a story from Clarissa Pinkola Estes, the gifted writer, folklorist, and storyteller, where she tells the story of a young man who was tired of taking care of his father. He brought him up to a hill to abandon him, and he returned to the village. When things started to get cold and dark, he did not know how to light a fire. No one in the village felt responsible for teaching him this because it was the role of the elders closest to him. He eventually went back up to the mountain to retrieve his father, and his father ended up teaching him how to light the fire. He also learned more about his father's life and developed a true respect for him. One of Diamond's comments about his research was, "The repositories of knowledge are the memories of old people." If you don't have old people to remember what happened 50 years ago, you've lost a lot of experience for that society. That includes everything from communal history to advice on even surviving things like a natural disaster. There are also many studies about how different societies treat and respect their elderly. For example, in many Asian and Mediterranean cultures, it was considered dishonorable not to take care of the elderly. It was also very common to find multi-generational families, so families where different generations are all living together. Modern technology and things like globalization and modernization have led to the breakdown in a lot of these traditional structures. Diamond said that there is also this theory of the cult of youth and an emphasis, especially in America, on work as how people gain value. Once you're no longer working, in some cases, you lose the value that you had in the eyes of society. He also mentioned that modern technology is putting some of the elderly at risk of falling behind in terms of what modern literacy means. He said that to improve the lives of the elderly, we should understand their changing strengths and weaknesses as they age, and appreciate their deeper understanding of human relationships and their ability to think across wide-ranging disciplines, to strategize and share what they've learned. Personally, I think this is so important. Pearl Buck said, "Our society must make it right and possible for old people not to fear the young or be deserted by them. For the test of a civilization is the way it cares for its helpless members." And Hubert Humphrey also said, "The moral test of the government is how that government treats those who are in the dawn of life, the children, those who are in the twilight of life, the elderly, those who are in the shadows of life, the sick, the needy, and the handicapped." How are we treating the elderly people in our lives? Are they feeling lonely or neglected? Are we treating them as disposable? And if so, why? Personally, I view the people in my life that are older than me as gold mines of wisdom, knowledge, and love. There's a Nantomba proverb that says, "A youth that does not cultivate friendship with the elderly is like a tree without roots." I gain new perspectives and things to ponder from the time and from what I learn from those who are more senior in my life. In some folk tales, we also find the archetype of the crone. The crone is a symbol of inherent wisdom that comes from experience. She has lived through love, sorrow, hope, and fear, coming out of it all a wise and confident spirit. Through these experiences, she has learned the secrets of life and death and of the mysteries beyond this world. When we connect with the elderly, they can pass the wisdom down to us that we need. I also had the benefit of living in a multi-generational family structure for years. When I returned to that structure after living alone for a pretty long time, many people asked when I would leave. I would often chuckle because I didn't want to leave. I enjoyed having the perspectives of my grandmother, my aunt, mother, and then my younger siblings below me. Additionally, I have friends of all ages, people who are younger than me and people who are older than me. I value these relationships because they're so meaningful. I have had some beautiful conversations, some nuggets of wisdom, and really just the ability to bask in the company of people who have seen and experienced so much. I do believe that our society should work towards making the elderly a priority, and all of us can start to do that on some individual and personal level. So here are a few tips that I have for cultivating relationships with the elderly. Find common interests. Ask questions about their life and their experiences. Tell them the interesting things that are happening in your life. Spend time together. Have conversations. Go places when that is possible. And be an advocate. If you see someone, like trying to take advantage of the elderly or engaging in elder abuse, speak up about that. Also be patient, right? Because I do know that in having some conversations with people who are older than me, especially if it pertains to technology, if they're still learning certain things, be patient with them. And also be genuine. I think that is, in all relationships, very important. So, I just want to say a very big thank you to the people in my life who are considered by society as elderly. I am thankful for you guys, and I love you all so much, and I am really appreciative of the wisdom and love that you've poured into me. And for everyone, I just want to thank you for being here. If you've enjoyed these videos, the topics, please do like, comment, share, and definitely subscribe to the channel. And may the stars shine brightly over your week, and may it be one in which you cultivate a beautiful relationship or beautiful relationships with people of all ages. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.